Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3744 AM. Today's date is October 2nd, 2025, and the title of the episode is Deep State Central Bank Are Using the Shutdown to Destroy Trump's Economic Progress? Big fail. Now, I don't know if you know this, but gold has gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere. Prices are climbing. Every day, more and more Americans are catching on to the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it? How do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? That's where Noble Gold Investments come in. Noble Gold specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next to knowing exactly what to do. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, safe, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from teams that handle over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit x22gold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That is x22gold.com. Noble Gold is helping you build a stronger future, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you can see that they have another event. Now, we have known from the very, very beginning, the Federal Reserve, the central bankers that are controlling Powell in the Federal Reserve, the deep state players, we know that they do not want Trump's economy to succeed. And they will push back at every chance that they get. And we can see with everything that is happening, they're waiting for event after event after event until they have the major event that they actually will need to explain to people why the entire economic system is falling apart. But with this latest event, which is the shutdown, you could see the deep state players, they are going to try to use this to destroy Trump's economic system. Now, once again, they did this going back to COVID. And yes, I know COVID was used for many different agendas, but one of them was to destroy the economic system. Because you have to remember, going back to January, before the pandemic actually hit, Soros was out there letting everyone know that this is the perfect time for the market to come down because it's overheating. This time around, you could see that the Fed, they really don't want to raise the rates. They want to hold the rates steady. If they could, they would raise the rates right now. And they need some type of an excuse. Now, the problem is that they're running out of excuses. And we could see out in Europe, the inflation is starting to pick up, and they might try to use that. But the shutdown is something that they can use. First of all, there's no economic reports that are going to be coming out of the government. So the Fed is going to say, and we said this yesterday, that since there are no economic reports, there's no way we can make a determination if we can raise or lower or do anything. So we're just going to hold steady right now. And they're going to use the shutdown every step of the way to not do anything. And I do believe the deep state players, they're going to try to extend this as long as possible. Now, like we discussed just yesterday, the longest shutdown was Trump's first term, which was 35 days. Let's see if they're going to extend this past this. Now, think about this for a second. The Supreme Court decided, you know something, we're not going to do anything with Lisa Cook right now, the Fed governor, until January of 2026. So here we are in October, and if we go 35 days, that brings us into November. If we go 61 days, that's going to be bringing us into December. So this is very, very interesting because Trump needs 61 days to make the firings permanent. So are they going to try to use this shutdown to keep the rates where they are, and hopefully they can do it long enough to bring the entire economic system down? Because Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is saying less. The shutdown will most likely hurt Trump's GDP numbers. So I do believe this is probably the next event that they're going to try to use to try to stop Trump's economy, and they need to try to do whatever they possibly can to try to stop it. Now, do I think it's going to work? Absolutely not. Because Trump's economic system is continually bringing in tariff money. He can still make deals. He doesn't need the rest of the government to do this. But you could see they're going to give it their all. Now, what's very interesting, The reason I do believe they're going to do this as of right now is because think about the GDP numbers. The GDP numbers, they were revised, and all of a sudden we found out that the GDP numbers were very, very high and the economy was doing much, much better than anyone could ever imagine. Peter Sayong put this out and said, GDP is on fire, hitting 3.8% for the rest of the year. Remember when experts said Trump's tariffs would crater the economy? And with Fed cuts and trillions of new investment flooding in, next year could be epic. Now, you have to remember, Trump, he put the Fed on the spot. The job numbers, they were all fake. Trump used this against the Fed, and the Fed was kind of boxed in, and they had to lower the rates one way or another. Now, they weren't going to do it by 2 points, so they just lowered it a quarter a point, saving face. Now that they have this event, they're going to try to push back because, again, the central bankers, their entire plan is to do what? To bring us into the Great Reset. And to bring us into the Great Reset, what do they have to do? They have to destroy their own economic system. They can't have Trump building a stronger economic system, and he can't show people, look, the economy's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. This is something that they definitely do not want. So I do believe at this point in time, they're going to try to use this, and they're hoping that this event will go on for at least 3 months or so. That's my gauge on all of this, because again, if they're saying, okay, we're going to sit this one out, I'm talking about the Supreme Court, if we're going to sit this one out until January, I do believe they were instructed and they were told, listen, don't do anything with Cook, just put it off until January. We got this shutdown coming up. We're going to try to destroy the economic system right now, and we're going to try to push other events. So I do believe this is exactly what they're trying to do right now. Now, in the end, just like everything else, this is not going to work because, again, Trump's parallel economic system doesn't really depend on the Federal Reserve system. Yes, he's still playing within the Federal Reserve illusionary economy, but he can still. Now, I don't know if you know this, but gold has gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere. Prices are climbing. Every day, more and more Americans are catching on to the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it? How do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? That's where Noble Gold Investments come in. Noble Gold specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next to knowing exactly what to do. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, safe, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from teams that handle over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit x22gold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That is x22gold.com. Noble Gold is helping you build a stronger future, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Drill for oil, because those are private companies. He can still make deals with other countries. He can still bring in tariff money. And this is not going to slow him down whatsoever. But again, this is the only thing that the deep state, the central bankers can do, is affect their own system that they have right now. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the Dem shutdown might cut Trump's GDP growth. So once again, we could see the GDP growth has hit 3.8%. And Scott Bessent is letting everyone know, and I think we already knew this, is that when Trump came into office, we were already in recession. The entire economic system was a complete and utter disaster. All the numbers are completely fake. So if you're dealing with all fake numbers, how can the economy be doing well? It doesn't make any sense. It means the economy is a lot worse than they actually let on. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said, we were left with a mess by the Biden administration. It was the largest deficit when we weren't in a recession, weren't at war, and now we are fixing the deficit. There could be a discussion, but this isn't the way we have a discussion. Shutting down the government and lowering the GDP. We could see a hit to the GDP, a hit to growth, a hit to working America. Letting everyone know that this might occur, and I do believe this is part of their plan. Their plan to stop Trump's parallel economic system and stop people realizing that Trump is improving the economic system. Now, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said we were not in a recession. We weren't in a war. Think about that for a second, because I do believe we were in a recession. And just because the officials didn't come out and tell you that we were in a recession doesn't mean we're in a recession. Because again, if you go back to 2008, that entire year, we were in a recession, even though the experts were telling us we were not in a recession. Actually, the recession started back in 2007. So I do believe we were already in a recession. And every step of the way, what Trump is doing right now, he's bringing us out of the recession. And I do believe that the deep state players during this period of time, they will also try to bring us to war. And I do believe the shutdown, yes, there's many different agendas associated with this, but one of them is to distract us from what is going on the other side of the world with Russia. And you could see that all the EU nations, they're already pushing maybe false flags or beginning the narrative that there's going to be war. So once again, I do believe they're going to try to use all of this right now to try to explain why the economic system is not doing well. Now, in the end, when this event fails, I do believe they'll move to the next event. Think about how many events we've had already. When the credit agency lowered the credit rating, and we had a couple of others that they tried to push, but they didn't work. And I do believe all they're going to have left with right now after this shutdown, because I don't think the shutdown is going to work, is war, which means they're going to try to use some type of cyber attack on the financial institutions to explain why the economy now is faltering, and the Federal Reserve will be relieved of lowering the rates because they'll say we're at war. We can't do anything like this right now, and the economy's falling apart. And I do believe this is what they're going to try to use. But I think Trump and the Patriots, they know the playbook. They know that this is what they're planning to do. Just like Trump knew exactly what they were planning to do during COVID. He knew that they unleashed the virus, number one, to try to bring down the economy. And the market did come down quite a bit, but then all of a sudden it started to go up and everything started to reverse. And they were kind of pissed off about that. So they ramped everything up and they tried to make us a lot more afraid of the pandemic than we should have been in the first place. And they wanted the entire economic system shut down. This was done on purpose to try to bring the economy to its knees. But when they realized that they couldn't do it, they had to move it to the next level. And yes, there was other agendas associated with it. And of course, that was cheating in the election because they couldn't have Trump win another term during that period of time. And they were also trying to usher in the Great Reset. Now, once again, Trump, I do believe, used this against them and actually used what they were trying to do to actually shift us into a different position. And number one, he used it to wake the people up of this country. Number two, he set everything up and got prepared for when he was elected once again. And I do believe he was commander-in-chief at the time, but when he was elected once again, he could actually get right into office and he could kick everything off very, very quickly. And this is something the deep state, the central bankers, didn't think was going to happen. They thought it was going to take a very long time for him to establish the tariff system, to establish the deals that he has been making around the world. I don't think they realized how quickly he was able to do all of this. And I think he was planning on doing this very, very quickly. So this way it would catch the deep state, the central bankers by surprise. And I think he actually did that. He caught them by surprise and they never expected this because think about it, coming out of Biden's economy, Biden said, listen, I'm handing you a very strong economy, which is a complete and utter lie because everything was manipulated and it was all fake. And they were hoping that in the first 1 or 2, 3 months, the entire economic system would completely and utterly fall apart. And they would just say, Trump, look what he did. He destroyed the economic system. But it didn't happen. And we never saw inflation because this is what the Federal Reserve was waiting for. None of the things that they thought was going to happen happened. And now they're kind of trapped in all of this. And when you start to look at it during this period of time, when they were waiting for all this to happen, we see alternative currencies. They started to rise like gold and silver, which is completely going completely against what they actually wanted. They never wanted that to happen. And people are starting to take notice of all of this. So their entire plan completely and utterly backfired in all of this. And it will continue to backfire as we move forward because Trump and the Patriots, they understand what the central bank's mission is. And they've told us what the mission was from the very, very beginning. It was the Great Reset. It was to destroy their old system to try to bring us into their new system. And I do believe Trump, in the end, he's going to be using this completely and utterly against the deep state players. And in the end, the central bankers, the deep state, they won't even know what hit them because he's going to show the people the truth. He's going to show the people that his economy is actually doing much, much better than the Federal Reserve economy. And I do believe he's going to make a distinction between the two. And people are going to actually see it. They're going to notice it. They're going to experience it. Just like they experienced Biden's economy and his inflation and his high fuel prices when he was in the White House. People knew exactly what was going on. This time around, as Trump continually lowers energy costs, keeps inflation steady, and continually brings in tariffs and jobs, people are going to feel it. They're going to experience it. They're going to understand it. So this is going to be very, very difficult for the deep state players, especially when Trump makes that move to remove the income tax. You see, that's going to be a game changer. And this is something the deep state players will not, and the central bankers will not be able to come back from. And I do believe this is where all of this is headed. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.